Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave.
On behalf of every father and every mother.
Wings for freedom. On behalf
Of our warriors. And paves the way for a new history.
Hello, everyone. Hello, chat. Hello to the panel. So before we start our show, we just wanted to maybe just make a little quick announcement to implore you. Our good friends at Twitter have taken away our broadcasting privileges. We use a lovely program called Restream. It's made by Ukrainians. But unfortunately, we have to start paying for Twitter if we want to broadcast there, and we don't want to give Elon his blood money for content. So we're left in the position where a lot of our viewers who normally would watch on Twitter no longer watch, and they're not really aware of what we do on YouTube. We kind of started on Twitter. So if you guys could just like spread the word, like the stream, like the stream, subscribe to Tochnyi, the channel. And just, let people know that we exist, that we're doing weekly broadcasts at 2100 Kyiv time, and that, we always have a good panel for you guys to provide accurate analysis about Ukraine. So I think with that, we can start the show. Erlend, any other pre-show announcements you want to cover?
No, well, it's a good show. I think some new guys will be introduced, and really happy to do so, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be a good show. So we, as Erlend said, we have a good show for you today. We'll go ahead and get started. First, I'll start with the news, the international news. Then we'll go to what I'm sure will be a big topic this week, and much bigger than normal. It's German aid to Ukraine's report. That'll be followed by an Orbat of the Kursk situation, or like an overview of the military situation in Kursk with our contributor, Lovely Lad. Very happy to have him here today. And we'll also be joined by one of our new contributors, Brendan, or one of our new people who work with Andrew, I should say. And he had an article that he published on Tochnyi.info, and you guys should go check it out. But he'll present some material from that article.
By the way, it's not yet out on Tochnyi, but it's on Substack, and we'll figure out a way to put it out on our channels as well.
Gotcha. And we'll get the link up for you guys in chat. Okay, so without, and I think that's everything today. Is that right, Erlend?
Yeah, and then Q&A. Colby's in the panel, so yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
I guess there's going to be questions for many of the people in the panel. So yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah, good panel, good show. Looking forward to it. So I think without any further delay, I'll go ahead and jump into the news. Military counterintelligence officers of the Security Service of Ukraine, in cooperation with the nation's defense forces, destroyed a Russian Kosta radar in Zaporizhia Oblast. The radar station is essential for monitoring Ukrainian airspace in the Russian air defense network and costs around $60 million. The Russian forces kept this crucial radar well concealed and mobile behind front lines. However, Ukraine's SSU, the 13th Intelligence Department, succeeded in locating and destroying the radar. They achieved this with the help of equipment funded by donations to the Come Back Alive Foundation, which provided tools for tracking and targeting enemy radars. Since the conflict has started, the full-scale invasion in 2022, Ukrainian security forces have eliminated numerous Russian air defense and electronic warfare assets, including radars, and expressed gratitude towards the civilians who have fundraised for the military. Overnight on August 18th, Russian southern regions experienced drone attacks, including an incident where a drone's debris ignited a fire at a diesel fuel depot in southeastern Rostov Oblast. The regional governor reported deploying a firefighting train and confirmed that no injuries at the site were reported. The site's in Proletarsk. Meanwhile, Ukraine's general staff claimed responsibility for a strike on the Kavkaz plant in Rostov, which stored oil products for the Russian military. The Russian the Russian Ministry of Defense stated that 5 drones were intercepted over Belgorod, Kursk, and Rostov, with additional UAVs down over Belgorod, and that they said the drone incursions have becoming more regular and intense since the Kursk invasion. Russia has reportedly redeployed several thousand troops from territories it occupies in Ukraine to Kursk Oblast in reaction to Ukraine's advancing military offensive. The U.S. is evaluating the scale of the troop movement, which includes multiple brigades and consists of at least 1,000 soldiers. According to John Kirby, the White House National Security Communications Advisor, the strategic shift is aimed at countering Ukrainian operations, but so far doesn't signify a significant withdrawal from ongoing conflicts in northeastern or southern Ukraine. Basically, they said it's not a significant movement of troops yet that would indicate like a serious strategic shift. Further intelligence indicates that Russia's reinforcements in Kursk may involve less experienced conscripts rather than more seasoned units from occupied territory. Personnel from the Leningrad military district and Kaliningrad have been moved into Kursk. And there are concerns among U.S. officials, according to Kirby, that by redirecting some of its elite forces to Kursk, Ukraine might not have, forces on hand to stop any advances from Russia in occupied territory. Ukrainian defense forces have reportedly damaged a crucial bridge over the same river in Zvane in Russia's Kursk Oblast, affecting a key supply route for Russian forces. The bridge damage is visible through images showing a large hole, and it's rendered it unsuitable for military transport. Only one bridge now remains functional for Russian military logistics in the Glushovsky district at Karza village. This attack, which is part of Ukraine's incursion into Kursk Oblast, which began, the full attack began on August 6th, utilized a HIMARS missile. I assume that's ATACMS, but, there may be...
GMLRS, Joseph.
That's what I thought, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, they used GIMLRS, and the commander of the Ukrainian Air Force, Mykola Oleschuk, confirmed the strike and noted the role of Ukrainian aviation in targeting Russian logistical capabilities, which he stated significantly impacts the logistics situation. The situation in Kursk this is all just, I try to eliminate some of that background stuff before the broadcast. So yeah, it's this bridge, maybe we'll talk about it a little more. It seems pretty significant though. Next item. The Ukrainian Air Force recently targeted Russian military assets in Tyotkino, a village in the Kursk region, as part of its ongoing military operation. The strike was reported in the Sonyashink Telegram channel, known for its affiliations with Ukrainian aviation. The targeted facilities included command and observation posts, as well as a hangar containing military equipment. The channel highlighted the effectiveness of the strike, noting that despite Russian efforts to conceal their hangar, Ukrainian forces were able to execute the attack. Tyotkino, which is situated in the Glushkovsky district, is outside the main area of Ukrainian ground operations in Kursk, which is concentrated in the Sudzansky district. Previously in March, the village saw, we saw it in the news, this village, when the Freedom of Russia Legion managed to capture part of the village during limited raids. The recent airstrike continues to demonstrate the focus of the village in terms of Russian military logistics for surrounding areas. Russian forces recently reported the loss of a Ka-52 attack helicopter along with its crew in the Kursk region. The incident involved the downing of the helicopter by a man-portable air defense system. It was initially reported by a Russian aviation-focused propagandist, Ilya Tumanov. Further confirmation came from other sources, including Zemtsov, who covers Russian aviation activities. This marks the second such loss for Russian aviation in the area within a short period, I want to say within a week. A previous incident on August 6th involved another Ka-52 helicopter that crash-landed from an anti-aircraft missile, and this resulted in the death of the helicopter's commander and injuries to the navigator, who was hospitalized. I think that was the previous one. I don't think it's we don't know what happened to the pilot in this case. Photos circulating on social media have depicted dramatic scenes of the helicopters, including images of a burning helicopter crash site, notably being Notably, the Ka-52, despite being equipped with ejection seats, the safety measures have often failed to prevent fatalities in these incidents, and most of the crews die. So it's pretty likely the crew died or was severely injured. Russian cyber specialists from the Main Intelligence Directory, or HUR, in collaboration with the BO hacker team, executed a significant cyber operation in Chelyabinsk in Russia. They targeted the Vega company, which is a crucial internet provider, and disabled 1,173 switches and 10 internet servers. The attack led to a substantial data loss on Vega's server and disrupted internet and communication services for strategic enterprises in the area, including the All-Russian Research and Scientific Institute of Technical Physics, what a Russian name, a key facility for Russian nuclear weapons development. The operation not only crippled communication capabilities, but also enabled the extraction of sensitive data, such as personal information of employees and documents related to the plant. The data could reveal how sanctions are being circumvented and identify individuals involved. The cyber strike has caused concerns in Russia about potential disruptions to their state defense orders, and this was discussed in local like Telegram channels. Monobank, Ukraine's largest direct bank, is currently facing a significant challenge with an ongoing DDoS attack, or a distributed denial service attack, which has been going for 2 consecutive days. The bank's owner, Ole Horokhovsky, reported that the attacks resumed early in the morning following a brief cessation the previous night. I want to say this is like yesterday and today, but with around 3 billion service requests targeting the bank over the period. Horokhovsky suggested that the best support during this time would be donation to Ukraine's armed forces, implying that the attacks might be orchestrated by Russia or its affiliates based. This isn't the first instance of a cyber aggression on Monobank. A similar instance in January saw over 580 million service requests directed at the bank's systems. While Horokhovsky did not directly accuse anyone for the latest attack, it sounds like he accused Russia, so that seems like a weird comment. But both sides have engaged in numerous cyber operations against each other, and this is one of Russia's, primary methods to disrupt services in Ukraine is to go after Monobank. According to a recent report by the Ukrainian Naval Command, I've got no footage for this because the news is nothing's happening. As reported by Ukrinform, there are currently no Russian naval vessels on combat duty in the Black Sea or in the Sea of Azov. The report, which was dated 6 a.m. on Sunday, August 18th, also noted that in the Mediterranean Sea, there's only one Russian warship deployed, and it is not equipped with Caliber missiles. The report highlighted that activity in the Kerch Strait, where 5 vessels were mentioned crossing into the Black Sea, 4 of which continued towards the Bosphorus Strait. I think these are commercial ships. 9 ships crossed into the Sea of Azov, and 2 originated from the Bosphorus. This comes amid news that Russia plans to restrict commercial navigation in part of the Black Sea near Crimea. So yeah, absolutely no Russian military naval activity in the Black Sea this week, or I should say, as of Sunday 6 a.m. So yeah, good news. Ukraine won the boat wars, guys. So next topic is economy and aid. That was all the operational stuff. Definitely by far the biggest topic this week was the operational stuff. So economy and aid, the Irkutsk aviation plant has recently delivered new Su-30 M2 multi-role fighter jets to the Russian Defense Ministry, and this was announced by the Russia United Aircraft Corporation. These jets are an upgraded version of the ones currently in use by Russian aerospace forces and completed all required ground and flight tests to be assigned to their assigned locations. Details regarding the exact number of aircraft remain confidential, although a released video suggests at least 2 were prepared for deployment. The Su-30 M2 distinguished itself from its predecessor by using domestically produced components instead of imported ones, and features enhanced onboard electronic systems. Notable improvements include an increased range for detecting and identifying air targets, the addition of new precise weaponry capable of striking air, land, and sea targets, and previous models were equipped with French HUD indicators, which facilitated the display of information to the pilot. However, now they have an indigenous solution for that, apparently, as they've rolled these out. Moreover, the Su-30's weaponry includes the KAB-500 bomb, which houses a camera and gyroscope under its shell to provide real-time visual information to the pilot. It's been revealed that upcoming batches of Su-30 fighters will be equipped with newer engines, similar to those in the Su-35 and Su-57 models. Slovakia's Way Industries and Italy's FAE Group have initiated local production in Ukraine of their remote-controlled demining systems to expedite delivery and reduce logistical challenges. Idor Federico, an advisor to the Ukrainian Minister for Strategic Industries, highlighted that such localization efforts are crucial to meet the Ukrainian market's needs for demining equipment to swiftly amplify the cumbersome import paperwork. In the model, the PT300 D mine, D:9, is produced by the FAE Group, and the Bosenza 5 from Way Industries are both designed to clear areas of mines, cluster munitions, and other unexploded ordnance. The localization of these two systems not only supports quick access to necessary demining equipment in Ukraine, but also aligns with the needs of the state emergency services, which has affirmed the efficacy of these systems in field operations. There's a lot of mines to clear, so more of this equipment is more good. These efforts are supported by international charitable foundations as well as Ukrainian state funds. The need for around 300 such systems would be ideal to address the country's current mining requirements. The PT300D mine is noted for its robust features, including a powerful Caterpillar diesel engine and the ability to operate on numerous challenging terrains, while the Bosenza 5 has been a long-standing tool in Ukraine for demining, so they're very familiar with it. And it's equipped with a special rotating chain device for safe and efficient clearance operations. The European Commission, I was a little confused on this. I reported, I think, like last week about this, but I think what happened was like the money was agreed to be sent, and this week the money is confirmed sent. So if there's any confusion there, like, did I announce this last week? So sorry about that. The European Commission has recently dispersed nearly 4.2 billion to Ukraine as part of the first pillar of the Ukraine Facility Fund. This latest disbursement increases the total EU funding given to Ukraine under the facility to 12 billion euros. The funding allows for the fulfillment of 9 reform indicators, which include enhancements to public financial management, governance of state-owned enterprises, the business environment, energy, and demining. The reforms are part of the broader Ukraine plan aimed at supporting the country's development and integration with EU standards. The disbursement also includes previous payments of 6 billion in bridge financing and 1.9 billion in pre-financing, which is a rapid implementation of the EU plan by Ukraine. So in other words, they were very organized. They got the money dispersed very quickly. On July 13th, the Ukrainian government announced a series of initiatives aimed at decentralizing power generation within the country. These measures are part of a newly approved Sustainable Energy National Action Plan, which has been extended until 2030. A key target of the plan is to have sustainable energy sources contribute 27% to the nation's energy production by 2030. To support the target, the government has set an annual quota to encourage businesses that produce energy from alternative services beginning in 2024. This includes a schedule for pilot auctions occurring this year to distribute the quota among power generating facilities. The total annual support for the subsidy is around 110 megawatts, which is 11 megawatts for solar plants, 88 megawatts for wind, and 11 megawatts for alternative energy sources. The power generation facilities that win the auctions are expected to begin delivering electricity to the national grid by 2025, and this will mark a significant step in Ukraine's efforts to enhance energy independence amidst Russian attacks on its infrastructure. And I want to say that the private energy firm, one of the energy firms in Ukraine, like already bid on some of these some of this capacity. So, and it sold out very quickly. So overall, and another report was that there's no power shortages today on Sunday. So I would say overall, like the power situation, like looking all things considered, of course, like pretty good. So yeah, up next is my last topic for the week, which is just stuff happening in Russia. So I'll go ahead and cover that. On August 15th, Russia's Emergency Situations Ministry announced a federal emergency in Belgorod Oblast due to an ongoing conflict as Ukraine's military action in the area reached its 10th day. The region borders both Ukraine and Russia's Kursk Oblast. The situation intensified when Ukrainian armed forces entered Kursk Oblast on August 6th, with Ukraine later claiming control over 74 settlements in the area by August 13th. The governor of Belgorod, Vyacheslav Gladkov, declared a regional emergency on August 14th and described the local conditions as extremely difficult and stated plans to request federal intervention. Following this announcement, the Russian government held a special meeting where they confirmed the declaration of the federal emergency. Emergency Minister Alexander Kurnkov highlighted the region's efforts in providing aid to those affected, but noted the scope of the situation was beyond the local government's capability to handle independently. They also addressed concerns about rising prices for essential goods in the area and directed the federal anti-monopoly service to control the situation. Recent attacks involving, we all know about that. Around 11,000 residents from one district in the oblast, Krasnoyarzansky district, and another district of around 14,000 people have been evacuated. A recent report from Citizen Labs and Access Now has identified a sophisticated spear phishing campaign, which is a hacking technique attributed to the Russian hacker group Cold Driver, which is believed to be linked to Russia's FSB. The campaign has been targeting critics of the Kremlin in Russia and the West, including Russian opposition figures, NGOs, and Western diplomats like the former ambassador to Ukraine, Stephen Pfeiffer. The attackers used personalized deceptive emails appearing to come from known contacts of the targets and included work-related content like proposals or articles to lure the targets into clicking on malicious links embedded in PDF attachments. The method allowed them to collect data from the victim's systems. The effectiveness of the phishing emails was noted as very high, with many recipients believing they were genuine communication with colleagues. In addition to targeting high-profile individuals, the campaign also aimed at several U.S. think tanks, indicating a broad and likely ongoing threat. The report emphasizes the potential that many more individuals and groups have been targeted than those specifically identified in their findings. Probably need to have another little IT meeting at Tochnyi, guys. So this last section, this is like 3 little items. I would classify it all under things are not going well in the Russian Far East. So that's the little like subheading of this section. A Russian T-22 M3 bomber crashed during a routine flight over Siberia's Irkutsk region, resulting in the death of 1 crew member, despite initial reports that all crew had ejected safely. The crash occurred in an uninhabited area and didn't cause any damage on the ground. Videos on social media showed the aircraft catching fire in midair with a technical malfunction suspected as the cause. Although the region's governor initially reported that all 4 crew members parachuted to safety, he later confirmed the death of 1 pilot. The exact cause of the crash is now being investigated. A significant earthquake of magnitude 7 occurred off the coast of Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, impacting the region on early Sunday. The earthquake originated at a depth of 50 kilometers and was centered approximately 90 kilometers east of the region's capital, Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky. Following the event, the U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center issued and then retracted a tsunami warning. However, local authorities didn't issue any tsunami alert. In response to the earthquake, tremors were felt along the coast, prompting local emergency teams to inspect buildings for damage. The region is part of a seismically volatile area known as the Ring of Fire, which encircles the Pacific Ocean, and it experienced several less intense aftershocks. Kamchatka, the region, houses 24 active volcanoes. In Russia's Far East, including Khabarovsk and Primorye, which encompasses Vladivostok, that region experienced blackouts on Friday following region-wide power outage drills. The drills were reportedly scheduled by the local energy ministry in Primorye as a test involving the shutdown of a high-voltage power line. Despite preparation, unexpected equipment failures at the thermal power plants led to further outages, resulting in the Far Eastern distribution company DRSK declaring a blackout. The situation caused disruptions, leaving people stranded in traffic, shopping malls, and elevators. Acting Energy Minister of Primorye described the timing of the outage as coincidental and assured that power restoration efforts were underway, with expectations to have electricity fully restored by Friday evening. So that was like last week. Additionally, the regional power the regional governor confirmed that the cold water supply would be reinstated overnight. Despite these efforts, around 600 households remain without power and without any cold water in Vladivostok by late Friday, as per the local media there. So that concludes my report for this week. I will now turn it over to German Aid to Ukraine, who's got, I think there's been some news this week. Is that right, mister?
Sadly. Hello, guys. As always, I will discuss the most important news regarding Ukraine from Germany. This week, we have two very interesting topics to talk about. Let's start with something light. The Landesfeuerwehrverband, what a German word, Bayern e.V., has put together a major donation of 8 firefighting vehicles, 15 tons of firefighting equipment, 6 mobile water cannons, and more, which started its journey to Ukraine on Wednesday. The transport was financially supported by the Free State of Bavaria. Coming on to the more interesting topics, on Thursday, the German MOD has published its own list of what military aid is to be delivered to Ukraine by the end of the year. So the remaining stuff, which is still pledged until December, basically. The list actually surprises me. The following future deliveries were made public: 2 IRIS-T SLM SAM systems, 4 IRIS-T SLS launchers, 10 Cheetah Sparks, 12 Panzerhaubitze 2000s, 4 Zuzana 2s, an unknown amount of remote control howitzers 155, drones and anti-drone systems, around 30 Leopard 105 main battle tanks, 400 MREPs, yes, I said 400, logistical vehicles like trucks and tankers, various vehicles like off-road vehicles, pickups, minivans, etc., assault rifles like the MK556, which is mostly in use with Ukrainian special forces, medical material, and 1 field hospital. Long list. Let me drink something 1 second. Okay.
Is that schnapps, Gau?
Just because I'm German?
Yeah,
Or-
I mean.
No, I'm drinking water. I'm staying healthy. Like when the show is done, I'm drinking a little beer, but
We thought you might be drinking because of the news, you know?
yeah, that never stops. That never stops.
Sorry, I just had to.
No worries, man. Now I'm drinking water. I'm staying healthy during the stream, you know. Yeah, but let's talk about that list for a moment. Frankly, I wonder how Deer Defense, so the manufacturer of the IRIS-T SLM air defense system, is able to produce 2 IRIS-T SLM fire units within the next 4 months, train Ukrainian troops on them for several weeks, and then also deliver them to Ukraine, given the fact that the production of 1 fire unit has just been completed. Like a couple of days ago, 1 fire unit was delivered to the Bundeswehr, so they have to now start production with an additional fire unit, and like producing 2 in 4 months, including training and delivery, is very strict timeline in my opinion. Funny enough, a couple of days earlier, I made a own list. I do this every year, and according to my own assessment, at least 1 fire unit can definitely be expected, because Norway has co-financed the next IRIS-T SLM fire unit, which gets delivered to Ukraine. And during the announcement of this co-financing, they made public that it will be delivered around in autumn. So I think maybe October, something around that. And yeah. The self-propelled artillery systems are also very interesting. Not only are 4 Zuzana 2 SPGs manufactured in Slovakia are to be delivered, whose delivery is extremely delayed. For those who don't know, Germany, along with Norway and Denmark, have announced 16 of them in, October 2022 to date. So almost 2 years after, just 2 artillery systems have been delivered. And apparently now 4 more coming until the end of the year, which is good news. But also 12 additional Panzerhaubitze 2000s, 18 of which were promised to Ukraine in February 2024, in a very big military aid package. But their delivery actually was only to take place from 2026, so in about 2 years, and to 2027, according to publications by the German MOD at the time. In my opinion, it is therefore very likely that the material comes from Bundeswehr stocks. So the Bundeswehr will deliver already produced, which they have in service since many years, and deliver that to Ukraine to allow a much, much faster delivery to Ukraine, while they instead will then receive freshly produced Panzerbeete 2000s in 2026 and 2027. And now one has to think about what's better, getting like older used material, but about 1.5 years early, or getting fresh produced artillery systems just 1.5 years later. I guess it kind of, I don't know, maybe both has its good things and bad things, if you know what I mean. Regarding the MREPs, these are FFG MREPs. So if you if you have forgotten this, Germany had delivered 66, I believe, was it? FFG APCs, which is basically a BAT-UMG IMV like license produced by FFG, the German company, and they are now got an additional contract with the German Ministry of Defense, where they have paid them a 3-digit million euro sum, and they are adding additional armor to that APCs or the IMVs, whatever you call it, to make them like an MREP. And yeah, they pledged 200 of them in September 2023. I believe it was another 100 in March 2024, and now we're at already 400 MREPs. Not a single MREP has delivered to date, and within the next 4 months, they are planning to deliver 400 of them. I honestly don't see how this is going, but yeah, that's the plan they made public. So yeah, let's see. And yeah, coming to the last topic everyone waited for, Germany and the Ukraine aid or the budget. Yesterday, the FAZ published a story based on obtained emails and sources they have talked to that the German Chancellor, in cooperation with the German Minister of Finance, have put an end, at least for the time being, to additional military assistance to Ukraine. Means no more money for the next years. Only aid that has already been pledged and announced is allowed to be financed and delivered, since the planned budget for the next year is already more than fully bound. So they have like bound the next year's budget with like 110%. So already the planned budget, not the final budget, the planned budget for 2026 is like at least some part taken from the next year's budget. So full stop. In a letter obtained by FAZ, Germany's finance minister Christian Lindner describes that the Ukraine aid is to be financed via the EU and G7 mechanisms, which are covered or financially backed up by the interest of the frozen Russian assets. This, of course, means that in theory, Germany would stop paying for its bilateral assistance and pay it by the interest of frozen Russian assets. I think there are plenty of questions going on with everybody. At least I have at least 6 or 7, which so far nobody can or wants to really explain. I would say that if you also have plenty of questions, we wait and you ask them during the Q&A segment, so we can like bundle this all together, and yeah, we will talk in more detail about it. Yeah, and that's all I had for this week. Back to you, Joseph. Or not?
Yeah, I don't
sorry.
think he's here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You are
German-
drinking schnapps.
Yeah, my mute button. So up next, we're going to have the discussion on the military situation in Kursk with Lovely Lad. So over to you. I think we're going to get something up on screen for you.
I can handle that on my own. I have everything I want to share here.
Beautiful. Welcome to the stream, by the way. We're glad to have you up here.
Yeah, of course. Just need Erlend to give me the ability to share screen.
Did you press share screen yet?
No, I don't have
You can't see it.
the button, yeah.
That's strange. Okay.
Okay, I have it now.
Okay, good. Anyways, I just wanted to say before we jump into the whole Orbat, welcome to the stream, and also, thank you for on behalf of the community of everyone who's following Ukraine for all the work you did during the first week of the Kursk invasion. For the people who doesn't know, Lovely Lad has been, and I'll try and share your Twitter here. So yeah, you've been doing a lot of Orbat maps, or maps with Orbat, and you did it every day the first week of the invasion, right?
Yep, I did it from day 1 to day 7, up every day. Yeah, it took a lot of time. After that, I thought it was better to focus on other things. It was too time consuming. Stuff had slowed down, but yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, did you try to share the Orbat?
Yeah, sure.
So
I mean, I can show everything. Shouldn't be a problem.
yeah, so I asked you to come on because you've been basically collecting information of which units are in this operation, and I think it's interesting because there's been a lot of speculation also online about this, but you've been
Oh.
collecting a lot of information and you've done it very thoroughly. Maybe you want to explain to people first, like, what is Orbat? What does it mean? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't know.
Yeah. So Orbat, the direct definition would be order of battle. Essentially, an Orbat of an operation would be the units involved in it. Usually there are more detail involved, like different echelons and reserves and stuff like that. But when we're referring to Orbat here, we mean the forces that are actively deployed inside the operation. This would be the Ukrainian Orbat here. I have two little visuals here. One is showing the forces the Ukrainian air assault forces have deployed, and the other one is more showing the ground forces elements. Of course, these are just the big units. There are some smaller ones. I've tried to include as many as I can in these particular robots. Now, of course, there are more, a couple of few units from missing, but that's the general gist of what an orbat is. As Erlend said, yeah, you can say Erlend.
No, I just wanted, what was your method of, finding the information? And I think we lost him. No, there, we lost you for a sec.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think
yeah.
you were
So
saying something.
yeah, I just wanted to ask, what was the data collection method that you used when you were, basically doing all your research and verifying your sources?
Over the last week, there have been a lot of different methods used for these. Some units like to post information about the involvement in operations, like on Facebook pages or Telegrams or whatever. Sometimes we see MIA reports, which would basically be missing in action, like a soldier from this unit was lost in this area. That can be used for that. Units that's for fundraisers, like a unit, a particular battalion might want a pickup truck. Such on the first week, a lot of Russian telegrams were sharing a lot of false information about the Ukrainian Orbat.
I think we had a little bit of connection issues there, so we lost you the last 10 seconds, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's probably the share screen. Erlend, do you have the images? Maybe you should try to show them instead of me.
Yeah, I'll pull them up. No worries.
Okay.
You can just cancel this screen sharing, and I'll do it. Yeah, if you just continue, and I'll get them up eventually. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm not sure where I stopped, but basically what I was trying to say, on the first week of the operations, a lot of misinformation, blatant disinformation, info ops, and a lot of different stuff was popping up, which made collecting information very difficult. And Russian telegrams, which heavily rely on reports from officers and command posts, did not have accurate information because the Russians themselves didn't have accurate information, as EW and different systems had destroyed their ability for their intelligence to function. So a lot of units were misreported and other stuff like that. But by now we have seen have a very good picture on the units deployed at this point. And I think somebody mentioned 1,000 people, at least. I think they said at least 1,000 people deployed in Kursk. I would say that's way too little for what we have. So this is the basically these units in Kursk would be attached to the tactical grouping of Troop Sumy, including the Ukrainian Air Assault Corps, which is in another visual. Or this will be attached to this tactical command, and this tactical command would operate in Kursk. And tactical command Sumy would be in Kursk, and in it there will be a lot of units which they were not all there on day one. Some came later. Elements of certain units came later. So to start off with explaining the Orbat from the ground forces, I think that would be a good place to start. Currently, there is the 5th Assault Brigade, which unfortunately, just to be clear, we don't know exactly where all these units are operating in Kursk. We just know they're in there. So the 5th Assault Brigade has 2 battalions inside Kursk. There would be the 24th Aidar Battalion, which would be an assault unit, as it is part of the Assault Brigade. And they would have the 6th Assault Battalion, which is a Skval, yeah, which is basically Ukrainian battalions made of conscripts, highly motivated assault units, would say it like that. I think you may have talked about in the Tochnyi streams about the Ukrainians using a certain recruiting convicts for some battalions. Other than that,
I don't think we talked about it. Maybe we did mention it last Sunday, but it's definitely been mentioned by several of the people that are associates and but yeah, which units are using the convicts? Because that's a new thing that happened not too many months ago, that former convicts were allowed to join armed forces.
yeah, I mean, I don't know every single unit that operates these Skval battalions. I know the 47th Mechanized uses them, the 5th Assault as well. These battalions are created and then attached to units, of course, after being trained and stuff like that. But I don't have details on where exactly they are deployed. All I know is about the 47th and the 5th Assault Brigade, which we just talked about.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read reports that they are highly motivated and it's been quite successful, but I haven't seen too many details, I have to say.
Yeah, I remember one report from a local commander, and it was like, we have about 200 of these guys in one of our units. They performed like way above expectations, and they just lost their first guy, and like, I'm really proud of them. That's basically what he said.
Yeah, I mean, I'd assume they would be more highly motivated than a mobilized guy. They are out of prison. They might be better. The reports I've seen align with yours, Joseph. But yeah, let's continue with this Orbat here. Other than the 5th Assault Brigade, there are a bunch of other units. Like there are 2 TDF brigades, which are operating in there. It's the 103rd TDF, which was there for quite a while. It wasn't deployed recently. It has been there guarding the border. The unit we know that has crossed the border from the TDF brigade is the 67th Territorial Defense Battalion. And top of that, the 73rd Territorial Defense Battalion from the 101st Brigade has also been deployed in that area, which is kind of interesting in my opinion, as you could deploy a lot of units. Why would you choose to deploy territorial defense element? But I don't know what could have happened. Then there is a brigade which came under the radar for quite a while. It's the 61st Mechanized Brigade, which we barely knew even existed. It wasn't even a mechanized brigade when we knew it. It recently transformed into one, but it takes a major part in the operation. We know it played a role for the capture of Shuzda, the biggest town just across the border that Ukraine has captured thus far. It utilizes at least 2 battalions inside Kursk. The ones that have been confirmed would be the 101st Mechanized Battalion and the 99th Mechanized Battalion, both operating around Shuzda. Then there is the 22nd Mechanized Brigade. This unit, it has been major part of Ukraine operations since basically the start of the war, and it was one of the first units to enter Kursk on August 6th. It operates, except from the 3rd Mechanized Infantry Battalion, the 419th Rifle Battalion, also operates Polish PT-91s and T-72 AMTs with their tank battalion just across the border, which we saw in many videos how they were using them, take Russian POWs and stuff like that. Other than that, a unit that has been heavily disputed is the 88th Mechanized Brigade. A lot of people don't believe it exists, or at least they didn't believe that right before the operation in Kursk. The unit did have basically, it was kind of an information operation. Like they claimed they had M2A2 Bradleys, which they never had, and that was most likely to confuse Russian intelligence and stuff like that. But in reality, they were very poorly equipped unit. They were operating some weird tracks with BM-21 launchers on the back. As at this operation, I believe that it was for taking in Kursk. A lot of people disagreed with that, but after that, videos came from FPV strikes, Russian strike. I don't have the video, unfortunately, right now, but striking a Ukrainian pickup with a BM-21 launcher on the back, which we knew the 88th Mechanized Brigade utilized. Also, a bunch of Cossacks and stuff like that, which were from unidentified units. I believe that it could be from the 88th, just because we didn't really know who was using them, and a lot of units did get reinforced with MRAPs and equipment like that before the operation. But that's basically the main line brigades would be from the ground force would be these ones. Then there would be some separate battalions, like a new one that was recently that has also come under the radar for quite a while is the 33rd Mechanized Battalion. Militaryland.net did a piece which brought it to light. I didn't know it existed before that, and the funny thing is, an article from some guys that went to Kursk to do a piece. I don't remember who exactly it was. It specifically mentioned inside it that the information they got was from a paratrooper from the 33rd unit, and it was kind of weird to me because I was thinking of the 33rd Mechanized Brigade, but it was mentioned in this unit, which we didn't really know existed. It's an assault battalion, and it utilizes mortar IFVs. We've seen some of them get hit by FPV drones, but not much from the Ukrainians, as they haven't been posting much at all. Other than that, a bunch of more famous units like the 425th Scala Battalion. It's an assault unit which partook in 2023 counteroffensive. It utilizes M1117s. And yeah, it's a basic assault unit of the Ukrainian army, has partaken in many operations, very experienced, and now it's working in Kursk with the other units. The other assault unit, that would be the last assault battalion, as we know has partaken in Kursk, is the 225th. Originally, it's from the 150th Mechanist Brigade, but this battalion is operating separately from them in Kursk. They have partaken in operations since day one. They have been given equipment from some Belarusian units like a Tur tank company. It's a tank unit, we don't know exactly its echelon, but they have operated 72s, other heavy equipment inside Kursk. Then there are the classic reconnaissance battalions. The 54th Reconnaissance Battalion has been in Kursk for quite a while. It's a major part of Ukraine's Operational Command North. And then there is the 130th Battalion. We don't know if the entire battalion is in use in Kursk. We know that Bravo team of the battalion was operating inside Suzda, according to multiple videos they posted. But yeah. Then for special operations, there is the first detachment of the 8th Special Purpose Regiment. I remember from Tochnyi actually geolocated a video from them ambushing a Russian truck just beyond Suzda. UAV units. There are a couple. So from 2023, every brigade under law was supposed to have a drone company, an attack UAV company, is how they mentioned it. Some of them, of course, they don't always operate with their parent brigade. Like these units here, most of them don't operate with their parent brigade, like Corner Group. It's a drone unit which has got a lot of fame through the counteroffensive and then defending Donbass. It is not operating with its parent brigade. It's operating separately under the command of Tactical Grouping of Troops Sumy. There is also Project M2, another popular UAV unit, and the Dragons Group, which it's not a spot, but it's still an effective drone unit which is utilized in Kursk. The biggest unit, UAV unit, which I believe Ukraine even has, is the 14th UAS regiment. A regiment for UAV is something I personally haven't seen before, and it has been using anti-aircraft UAVs which struck Russian helicopters inside Kursk, which is something that Andrew really wanted to see. They were first struck in Kursk from, unless I've missed something, but a couple of them were struck there. Yes, that would cover the ground forces part of this. Then there is the Ukrainian air assault forces.
Yeah, the FPV drones attacking helicopters has been like in a focus both of Andrew and some of us here that we've been looking at closely, and we got the first confirmed one. Geolocated it, and there is a couple of other, which I would say are highly likely that they struck the helicopter and took it down, but we need a little bit more evidence for battle damage assessment to confirm that they actually killed the helicopters. But there's at least one confirmed kill with an FPV drone. Then there's been like stories about one over Donetsk, which we haven't seen any BDA of, which was maybe 3 weeks ago or something. But yeah, this is a new weapon, and it's utilizing FPV drone platform, but it's very tweaked FPV drones. It's not the classical FPV drone. We know that they've been developing special FPV drones for this, so it's interesting. Anyways, did you want to go back to the airborne one?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So these guys, the air assault forces of Ukraine, spearheaded the operation in Kursk. There were a couple of battalions in the start of the operation. Now there have been confirmed to be at least 6 battalions of the Ukrainian air assault troops working inside Kursk. The 82nd has been the spearhead of the operation, especially during the first days, with its Striker APCs, the Russian provided ones. They were the ones that actually breached the Surovikin line. It was built there since 2023, but was not properly defended, manned, or anything like that. So the Ukrainians were very easily able to breach the defenses with their striker APCs and move deeper into Kursk. The unit that started was the 3rd Assault Battalion of the 82nd, but since then we know the 2nd Air Assault Battalion and the Air Mobile Battalion of the unit are operating inside Kursk. Of course, the entire brigade would have four battalions. Currently, we don't have information on the 1st Air Assault Battalion, but it very much could still be deployed inside Kursk right now. We just don't know about it. The 80th Air Assault was also there, like 1st or 2nd day. Now we know they're operating 2 Air Assault battalions, the 1st and the 2nd Air Assault Battalion. What a unit! Just to finish with the 80th Air Assault, we have seen them operate French-provided VABs, which could be attached from the 46th Air Mobile Brigade, but there is no direct confirmation for that. So that just keep that in mind, because we've seen quite a few VABs in there. The recent addition, the collection here of the Ukrainian Air Assault troops, is the 1st Air Assault Battalion of the 95th, which made its entry just a couple days ago. We've seen it operate with Humvees, mainly Humvees. I don't remember their other equipment, but yeah. Then, of course, on the far right, we have the 170th Logistics Regiment. We know the unit operates there. It's mainly focused on transporting equipment and logistics, but of course that's not quite the focus of this show, but we don't have many details on the Ukrainian logistics units that are operating there, but I thought it could be interesting, so I put it there since it is confirmed. This is what we know. All this we talked about this far is what we know is confirmed. There have been some other units, which there are many indications that they could be operating there. This would be the 152nd, 53rd, and 54th Mechanized Brigades, which we've shared a lot of reports about, or even the 150th. A lot of these 150 brigades, we shared a lot of reports about them operating there, but we haven't really had too much confirmation. Now, of course, just Ukrainian special operation forces, like we've seen, like DRGs make deep thrusts into Russia, like a unit we know operates is the Da Vinci Wolves, I think. Da Vinci Wolves, which is a DRG unit, special operations unit that operates inside Russia. There are some other units like SPU Group Alpha, which are also operating there. They recently posted a video how they cleared a bunker with 103 Russian conscripts and FSB Alpha units near Sverdlink or whatever. And yeah, that's basically, I think what I forgot to include in the Orbat was the 92nd Mechanized Brigade, which is operating more to the east. Near Giri, we saw one of its units get struck very heavily there. So this is something I forgot, probably because it's so off the frame. As for artillery units, stuff like that, we know 2S-22 Bogdanas, likely from the 49th, are operating there. And M777s from the 44th Artillery Brigade are there as well. Now, an estimation of the number of troops that are operating there would be, I would say, even with these many battalions, it's probably less than 10,000 troops, likely around potentially 8,000 Ukrainians inside Kursk, excluding logistics and artillery brigades. Yes, this covers pretty much everything for my report this week.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is super important to remember, and you made it really well in this presentation that not if a brigade is present, it doesn't mean that the whole brigade is inside Kursk. And we've seen a
Yeah.
lot of reporter, people on X and other places saying like, yeah, so Ukraine has this, that, and the other brigade there, which means that the whole brigade is there, or they assume that the whole brigade is there, and that that's why they come up with numbers of like 25,000 troops inside Kursk. And I think, you presented it very well, that there are levels to which how much of the brigades are deployed, and also sometimes it's just a battalion or two. So yeah.
Or even less, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does anyone on the panel have any questions for Lovely Lad before we move further?
Not from my side, but thank you very much for the dedication and the presentation.
Yeah, I want to say the same. Thank you so much for doing what you did the first week, and also continuing to give some relevant information. I think there's been a lot of misinformation about these things, and people have noticed you on Twitter as well, that you kept a consistent flow of updates and corrected information that was wrong out there. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my focus on the first days. I'm glad, I got some recognition from it online. I guess, it was gonna happen at some point.
Cool. Do you want to give any other comments about what's happening right now? Because we can kind of give maybe a little overview of things. I know, for instance, there's been reports that there's a bunch of UAVs harassing Russian troops in this area that are moving in and out of Koronevo. There's been reports of Ukraine being inside Koronevo as well, but I'm not sure if it's verified or not. And then on the eastern side, Ukraine has kept pushing towards Kyiv, where we had that incidents with the BTRs. And do you want to give any comments to what you've seen?
I mean, I haven't been following the situation as closely as I did during the first week, but I know a lot of Ukrainian units are trying to secure the town of Koronevo. It's a very important town in the area, a very difficult choke point, which the Russians have put a lot of resources into holding. And the Ukrainians probably, as an estimation that you could prove around 5 to potentially 6 battalions are moving around Koronevo. We've seen more units move towards it. And yes, they want to secure its important choke point, and it would open up the route to Rulsk. But, other than that, I don't have much else information.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what happened the last few days. We had the bridges being struck, which caused massive disruption in the settlements in this area. I think it's 3 bridges now, and the Russians also have some engineering bridge deployed somewhere, but that has also been reported as struck by the Ukrainians. So the Russians are in a very difficult situation in this area, southwest of Koronevo.
Yeah.
Tochnyi is kind of very isolated right now, and Ukraine has been striking it a lot with even with JDAMs, and one of the bridges was also finally destroyed with JDAMs. So it seems like Ukraine has at least some operational room to fly in this area or in the border regions.
Yeah,
But yeah,
from what I've heard, this is information pretty early in the campaign, probably day 4, day 5. The Russians had a battalion of the 331st Airborne Regiment, so it's a VDV battalion in Tochnyi, which now is kind of stuck there. They've been trying to move it out. Elements from it have definitely passed, but a lot of troops are trying to get away from there right now. It's been a little difficult for them.
Yep, Ukraine did some excellent tactics here, in my opinion. Tetkino, of course, was one of the places Ukraine sent in the incursions in the past, and so the Russians have actually spent some resources on fortifying this.
Yeah, it's a good strong point there.
Yep. And now they're stuck, or at least partially stuck. It's really difficult to move heavy equipment out. A lot of personnel moving them out as well is going to be difficult with all the bridges broken. I mean, there are back roads here, but I mean, it's going to be really problematic. And we saw Russian mill bloggers inside this area as well who had some issues because of the bridges. So I think Ukraine has employed really good tactics here, and yeah, it's not gonna. When you are trying to defend in so many places, on top of that, you have this kind of dilemma: are you gonna, just abandon everything and leave? It's not making operations that they actually have to focus on easier. But yeah, I think we're going to see this fall. I think Ukraine is going to, at least they might not move in very quickly, but I think the Russians are going to lose control over this area eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a discussion. It's almost practically 100% gonna fall, this area. The conversation would be how to move from that area. I mean, the Russians cannot possibly supply their troops here. They're withdrawing units and supplies from the remaining bridges that they've set up. Of course, some units will try to hold it, but I don't believe that there is any chance they're gonna be able to hold around here.
Yeah, in my opinion, I don't think Ukraine should focus on trying to seize this area very quickly, but securing all the borders and keeping pressure on from all sides. I think that's probably going to be the main focus, and should be. When it comes to Koronevo, I think, yes, it's tactically very important, because if you take it over, you're immediately pressuring Rilsk, and that's something the Russians are going to be. They're probably very scared of this. That's why they've been defending Koronevo so much. Rilsk is incredibly important for them in this area, because as you see there, it's basically a hub with major roads going in and out to each direction. So it's going to be interesting if Ukraine manages to take over Koronevo and push further up northwest. It's going to be difficult for the Russians to keep even Rilsk, in my opinion.
Yeah, and with some whispers of Ukrainian buildups around Kyiv, we may see an expansion to the operation towards Rulsk.
Is that up here or?
Kyiv, you're seeing it right there on the left. It's in Ukraine.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah, and then in the east, what do you have to say about this? I mean, we had this overextension or some strange situation that happened in Giri where they got into an ambush pretty bad, but
Yeah, I mean, this area, Ukraine, I believe, has achieved its, at least partially, its operations goals in here. Operational goals have secured Suzda and many important defensive positions like heights. Unfortunately, the Russians have been putting pressure around Malaya Loknia with the 11th Air Assault Brigade, I think. But generally, I mean, the push towards Giri, Belits, and Belaya, I think that will continue here. Obviously, now we've seen the Russians' reports of them leaving Ulanok. We saw the tragedy at Giri. Of course, that was likely due to poor intelligence, which, especially in such maneuver campaign, can happen. The Russians were very well dug into there in Giri, and the Ukrainians were not expecting that. to say the least. But yeah, I mean here, likely an expansion eastwards. Maybe they're going to lead to a limit of advance at some point, but there's no guarantee that they will do that anytime soon.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Sucha is in this in between a lot of heights. They're not particularly high, but they're at least elevated. You can see it there in the topographical map of on Andrew's map. These heights, there are some south of Sucha, and also I think there's a ridge here. If there's going to be a defensive line, you kind of want to keep these heights under your control. So I expect them to try and secure most of this area. You also have north of Sucha, very important heights. So there's a lot of tactical points that Ukraine want to secure over time here. Of course, you would like to keep control over the main roads in and out of Sucha as well. So that's kind of probably the remaining one that is directly the remaining hub, or there's an intersection between two main roads that leads into Sucha.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I think we should move on. By the way, I know Andrew didn't fully update the map yet, also because basically people said like, maybe we should, wait a little bit before things are updated further. But there's a lot of very interesting geolocations that have been added the last few days. So I recommend everyone to go and check out Andrew's map. So yeah. Thank you so much, lovely lad. I hope to have you back soon. I see, by the way, there's a question that is relative to us. So. Yeah, of course. It's the topic we didn't touch on.
Yeah.
Do you want to address it quickly?
Yeah, I mean, we can do that pretty quickly. I mean, we've seen elements from a lot of units arrive here. The response was not as big as we expected. Most of the troops holding the airs have been destroyed. So, I mean, I would say, like, as a rough estimation, the Russians probably have around 5 to 7, potentially even a few more thousand troops, but generally still less than what Ukraine has still. That's the basic assessment.
What would you say the main tactic of the Russians have been?
They tried to counterattack at first, which, I mean, delayed the Ukrainians, didn't stop their advance. Now they're more focused on the defense, except from places like Malaya, Loknia, which shows some very complicated front lines there. Kind of messed a little bit. Of course, Andrew has it all as a gray zone, but the Russians, the Ukrainians are near to the north. The Ukrainians are close to Krumsky Buki from the road from Malaya, Loknia, and they've advanced from Zuravki up to what was Kanchuk, I think it was the town. And then the Russians managed to get like a battalion towards Malaya Loknia. They've been trying to take it, but they haven't been successful there. It's a bit complicated. I don't believe the Russians can stay there for long. But yeah, I mean, their tactics currently, they don't really have many capabilities to counterattack. They can't do much except from hold here. They're trying to maintain the Ukrainians as much as they can. That's what I see.
Yeah, I think so. Andrew mapped this as a gray area, and I think it's fairly correct to assume it's a gray area because we've seen so many different geolocated and evidence that Ukraine is operating in this area. Also, of course, outside sometimes, but I don't think there's a defined front line anywhere here. But we have these.
Oh yeah.
These cities, small towns that have been, kind of center of defense for the Russians. Some like Koronevo, but this is where maneuver warfare is very
Yeah.
useful, because you don't have a defined front line yet, and until that solidifies, there's a lot more room for the attacking force compared to the rest of the front lines.
Yeah, I mean, a front line is basically only exists in static warfare. Like we see in Donbass, it's very static, position by position assaults. Right here, I mean, there are certain strong points like Koronevo, but rather than that, it's maneuver elements trying to outmaneuver the enemy, secure important points. But that's kind of basic essence of what's happening. Of course, maneuver is very complicated. I've studied it for many years myself. There are a lot of things that take part in it. Of course, the front line could be present during maneuver, but most of the time it isn't. Like we see here, there's no clear front line. If you try to draw front line, it's going to look very weird. Unit positions and stuff like that are more important in this case.
Yep. Okay. Thank you so much. I think we're gonna end it here, and then hopefully we'll have you back and talk more about similar topics soon.
Yeah. Nice. I'm glad you guys had me here today, I guess.
Well, I hope so. I hope you enjoyed it, and follow Lovely Lad on Twitter if you're interested in similar updates. Yeah, this is your Twitter page. You're also doing some other stuff. I know that this whole Kursk offensive interrupted some in-depth studies that you've been doing of the Ukrainian offensive last year, but I think it's been a positive way to introduce you on the stream to not talk about last year's offensive. But yeah, you have some very interesting stuff here on that you've pinned to your profile about this, and I hope we can talk about it sometime soon on the stream.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Okay. Well, I think we have just one more segment today, and that's we have a new contributor to the stream, and that's Brendan. Is that correct, Erlend?
Yeah, Brandon. So welcome, Brandon, by the way.
Pleasure. Nice to be here. Been a long time viewer.
Yeah, I remember. So basically, Brandon is one of the people that jumped in when we said that we announced that we take in people for Andrew's basement, and one of the early people who applied to join, I think. And you've been working how many months now? With
just about 3 months.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember when you first applied, you said, yeah, I have to wait a little bit before I can start. But yeah, you've been going for 3 months strong now.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been mapping the news stories as they come out from the national police and any of the regional military administrations, as well as civilian media within the area that often gives us a lot more context than the police will in their sort of like daily wrap-ups. But yeah, Andrew keeps me kind of in my own corner of the basement, in the news corner. I don't get to play with everybody else in the drone location, but no, it's been an excellent experience. But let me share my screen here. Want to share Andrew's map. Is this working?
One sec. Yeah, I'm gonna full screen it.
All right, awesome. So a little rundown of kind of like what I do for Andrew and the team, using the data that we collect off of Telegram. That's where most of it comes from. Sometimes Twitter, sometimes Facebook, every now and again, or the National Police website. They actually publish their articles there, and we import it in. Usually we send it to a Telegram bot that goes to a spreadsheet. We take it from that spreadsheet, into another spreadsheet and reorganize it, categorize it by event type, when it occurred, who done it essentially as well, who committed what action, and based on like what kind of event it is. Andrew has a library of like, I don't even know how many hundreds of little icons. No joke, I actually see these icons in my sleep sometimes. But for example, we have August 11th here. And this is Antonivka and Kindika in Kherson Oblast. So on this particular day, there were a lot of drone strikes, and this is one of my areas of kind of interest and focus outside of the mapping. But what we'll do is we'll import that data into the spreadsheet. I'll then go into Google Earth Pro and create an event, import the translation in there. A lot of the times I have to kind of correct some things with the translation. One thing that I think a lot of Western software, translation software, doesn't necessarily get quite right is like the intricacies between Russian and Ukrainian language. And so sometimes AI translation software will default to Russian. So I have to go back and correct it to make sure it's the correct spelling a lot of the time. And outside of that, we import a link or any images. I think just kind of going full circle here to one of the stories we had. Yep, I think it's right here. August 14th, one of those demining machines that we saw earlier in Tochnyi stream when Joseph was presenting is here at work in Kherson Oblast after they cleared 21,000, almost 22,000 hectares of deoccupied territory. So this is another aspect of kind of what we track. It's not only the shelling and the drone attacks, it's also kind of like the civilian news. Today I was mapping in Donetsk Oblast. Hold up, keep going. One place that I know everyone is really focused on right now is actually Pokrovsk, and kind of understanding that this area is under a lot of pressure right now. So today there were a lot of stories about grocery stores and mail services ceasing within the city within the next week. So Ukroposhta is going to be stopping their services, as well as Varus, a major grocery store in the Pokrovsk region, I think in Seladova and in Pokrovsk. So that's the kind of stuff that we track, that I end up mapping. So not a lot of geolocation, but more or less tracking of civilian infrastructure strikes and general shelling. It's been busy up in Sumy the last 2 weeks, but I think that's a pretty good idea of what I do there. But shall I move into the next segment, Erlend?
Well, I think this is super interesting, and I guess we're gonna have you back whenever you feel like you want to present some of the news stories from the map as well.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I think so the reason why I asked you to join is because you recently wrote an article which is quite interesting, and it's a little bit of a project that you have, right?
Yes. It was something I was really motivated to investigate and to hop onto. The war crimes aspect of this war is really what motivated me to join the Tochnyi team and the basement, to sort of bring these to light and bring the perpetrators to justice. So this week, another development, obviously within the realm of Russian war crimes, was the beheading of a Ukrainian casualty in Belgorod Oblast. And I ended up doing a little bit of research and synthesizing a lot of the sources to kind of paint a broader picture of potentially what happened. I I think it's likely what happened, but I won't say with 100% confidence that it's exactly what happened in terms of the story that I portray. But geolocated wise, we do know the war crime happened. Actually, I think Geo confirmed 8 hours ago. He just confirmed that, or that team confirmed it, as well as Deep State. They have also geolocated it and confirmed it. So we know this happened. That's confirmed. So I'll present my screen if that's okay, and go through a little PowerPoint presentation to kind of illustrate a little bit of what happened here.
Yep. Please go ahead.
All right. Can everyone see this?
Yep.
All right. So Kolotilovka is a small town on the Russian-Ukrainian border in Belgorod Oblast, not far from where hostilities are happening to the north in Sumy and in Kursk. So we see somewhere around like August 16th, kind of in between the 15th and 16th, video surfacing on Russian Telegram of a beheaded Ukrainian casualty with his head displayed on a pike at the border crossing. So another development we'll get to later is there also might be more victims, according to some other open source investigations. So first, here is a censored image. My article, I do want to just be very clear. It's uncensored, so do not go into it with the expectation of censorship. I want to show the crime in all of its reality, because I think that's important. But also, I do want to make sure that people are forewarned and don't needlessly traumatize themselves if they don't have to. So this is the head of the victim put on a pike, and we'll get to where this is exactly in a second. But this was a video that originally it was from Rus Troika 1945 on Telegram, but I ripped it from Rosish, and that's an important element, I think, is the source there. Rosish and that group, that name, that word in Russian, it's far right, Nazi aligned, white supremacist through and through. So that's an element that I think really underpins sort of like the nature of the crime that we're getting here, is that it's potentially racially motivated against Ukrainians, because we know that that's an aspect of this conflict as well. So I have a edited video here of what I think was potentially August 12th, maybe earlier, but according to RV Voyenkor, he said between the 12th and the 14th, Ukrainian units were carrying out small raids on the border checkpoints in Belgorod Oblast, and that they'd kind of been doing that on and off to kind of test, I think, what kind of force was there, strength and such. So I'll play this video here, if it will, of a Kozak 2 IMV. Let's see if it'll keep playing. Moving towards the border checkpoint. We'll get to exactly where that is in a second with some satellite imagery. But you can see they are under fire, but there are no explosions in this edited video. But because of the nature of the dragon's teeth on the approach that you can see there, that kind of sent, I think, the driver into a sort of confusion potentially, and he ended up getting into a pretty severe crash there at the border checkpoint, which hampered, I think, the intention of the operation. That caused them to then have to dismount. After they dismount, they begin to take mortar fire. I believe it's mortar fire. I'm not positive about that. You'd have to ask Andrew. But here's some satellite imagery to show us kind of the road that we were approaching here. It's actually right here, and this is the westerly direction. So up is west here. And in this case, they're coming down the road. We can see that clump of trees from the footage off the side there, and they skip ahead and end up crashing at the border checkpoint somewhere around here. I'm not exactly sure where they crashed, but I think it's right at the border potentially. And so this is a close-up of where we saw that initial scene of the Kozak 2 running down the road here. I don't know if Lovely Lad is familiar with what units would be in the area in terms of Ukrainian units. I wasn't investigating that specifically, so I don't know what unit carried this out or what unit sustained the casualty. But we can see here from this is actually Chechen, I think Akhmat Special Forces, maybe 78th Special Purpose Regiment. I wasn't able to verify, so I didn't bother. We do know that they're Chechen, though, and I'll get to that later. But this surveillance drone footage here is showing the Ukrainians dismounting and retreating. You can see them going back up the road and over the border crossing in this satellite footage here. And that's, again, roughly the area in which this incident occurred up in the top corner here. So the vehicle was lost and casualties were sustained. I don't know exactly how many, but at least one is what I know of. Potentially, there could be 3 more, and we'll get to that in a second. So I have some edited footage and a still here from Kadyrov 95. I ended up getting this also from Rosich and Arvi Voyenkor as well off of Telegram. And this kind of paints a picture for us more or less here of who was potentially engaged in the initial combat, maybe in the war crime, but at least engaged in the initial combat as far as we know. So we'll get to the photo on the side in just a second, but I want to play this this clip here. This is a close-up of a Chechen warrior. He says, Akhmat Sili, which means Akhmat is strong, identifies himself as a Chechen. You can see the flag not only on his helmet, but also on his armor, his protective armor, on his vest, on his chest there. So in terms of who this is, we know who these guys are. There's also in the video, I've removed the sound because of potential curses and racial slurs and things like that, because most of these videos are tinged with that anyways. We can see these are Akhmat forces pushing back and counterattacking those Ukrainians that I think were raiding the border crossing. And here they are with the captured Kozak too afterwards. So shortly after, it cuts to this surveillance footage that I grabbed a still from. I edited a lot of this footage to exclude a lot of the stills of casualties, or the casualty in question. So this is the casualty in question, the victim of the crime. He's being, it seems, being searched at this moment by an Akhmat soldier. In terms of documentation, we'll get to how we might understand that he's being searched for documentation a little bit later, but that's just standard procedure as well. But that's what we see. And one important factor is that he does, in the uncensored image, you can see that he does still have his head, and his head is not, his decapitation is not a result of combat injury. And we'll get to that in just a second here. So this is the censored photo that's made rounds. You can see the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade. The Naval Infantry have that standard white field with a blue cross on it to identify themselves, and they were open about being 155th. So we have you can speculate that these guys were also potentially perpetrators of the crime, or at least participants in the combat. I wasn't able to verify presence of any specific unit. Just we know that he claims he's 155th, and it appears to be 155th. So that's what the basis I'm operating off of, that potentially Chechen and 155th forces were working together within the border, or maybe Chechen forces were relieved sometime after. The timeline of events is a little vague to me specifically. I haven't really found out when all of these events occurred. Again, the raid, I think, on August 12th. This video was published on the 16th. I was thinking this occurred between the 14th and the 16th, potentially thinking Akhmat forces were being pulled further north by the Kursk offensive, 155th relieved. I wasn't sure what the deployment was, so I didn't want to speculate more than that. So we have here the still, the infamous still that's making rounds across social media, specifically Telegram right now, and X. So in this video, he identifies himself as 155th. Now, an important thing about this video is it goes on to also show the corpse of the soldier lying on the ground. And I know it's really hard to tell with the blurred image, but this is a still on the left here of the corpse of the soldier with his head and neck intact from the Chechen video, and you can see the green roofs in the background of the video there. That's how we know it occurred at the border checkpoint. You can see that in the satellite imagery in my article as well, and from the satellite imagery earlier. But just ahead of where the corpse is, you can see this sort of blurred line that I have kind of going here. There's a stream of blood coming from where the soldier's head used to be, and you can also see his helmet has been removed as well. And I'm no expert in terms of forensics. I want to be clear about that, but it does appear in terms of like the uncensored images of the head on the pike that there was like some sort of knife or something used in the removal of the person's head. This is so difficult to talk about. I'm sorry. But in terms of who did this, we have some leads in terms of what I was able to find on X and PS Style 101. He's great in terms of publishing some pretty top-notch intel sometimes. And this is an interception of transmission between the 155th. Now, this is where I'm kind of unsure of what unit's doing what here, because also at the same time, this perpetrator was said to be part of Akhmat. I don't know if there's a unit of Akhmat that's subordinate to the 155th. I don't know really how this works, but this is an intercepted intelligence intercept, where call sign Pushkar is talking to call sign Bugai, and call sign Bugai is essentially giving Pushkar permission to publish the video of the severed head at the checkpoint. Now, one other really important aspect of this video, and for reasons I wasn't able to integrate it with Substack, so you have to go to X to actually watch the video. X and Substack don't get along. You can actually see or hear rather that there's potentially 3 other beheadings that happened as well. So as to imagery for that, though, I don't have that, haven't seen any of that. But one other element of this is PS01. He ended up also diving a little bit deeper with another OSINT guy on X, and coming up with an investigation of social media, Russian social media here, kind of giving us a lead on potentially who committed this crime. It seems to line up for the most part. We can see he's associated with a 155th Brigade, Morskaya Pekhoty, so Marine Infantry Brigade, Naval Infantry Brigade. So we can see that he's associated with that. He's also got associations with Chechen Spetsnaz units as well for some reason. And we can basically verify that Pushkar is Denis Pushkaryov, is the best that we've been able to gather from open sources. Now, there might have been developments as I wrote this on the 17th. So some of this information could be old and there could be other developments. But as it stands, I'm pretty sure this is one of the perpetrators of the war crime. And we do see the command also implicated through this intercepted radio call. We do see the command structure implicated in the war crime as well, but that's something we all know from Bucha and Irpin, that is standard operating procedure for Russian units that carry out war crimes. It's usually somewhere around the company or battalion level, and I've even heard stories of brigade level recently in terms of like no prisoners and mass decapitation. And to put this into context also, there was a story, I think in June, from the Kyiv Independent about another decapitation of a Ukrainian POW, and the dismemberment of a Ukrainian POW. So we have lots of these situations happening here. This isn't just kind of a one-off situation. This is just one that I kind of investigated here, and it's part of a larger pattern of Russian behavior in combat. And my sources.
Yeah, I mean, this is some absolute horrible shit, to be mild.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And that's why it's very important that people like you actually investigate it and document it with sources that are valid as it's happening, and not just in the aftermath, because it's important to show these things to the world as it happens, as well as preserving the documentation.
Absolutely. I also wanted to highlight Ukrainian government response as well. Ombudsman Dmytro Lubinets also had said, submitted an appeal to the UN in terms of the committing of a war crime here, violation of international humanitarian law by the Russian side. So in terms of the government response, though, there hasn't really been much more than that. It's very much kind of let's investigate, see what's going on here, and then prosecute with the full authority of the law afterwards.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Brandon, also from the panel, or comments?
It was very comprehensive. I guess maybe my one question would be, is there anything you think that the mainstream reporting, or, just to generalize, like the kind of online discourse about this got wrong or missed, or any details that you think are important that, in dialogue with the kind of broader discussion of the event?
In terms of the mainstream media, I haven't. So I admittedly don't read too much of the mainstream media. I spend most of my time locked in the basement, spending my time in Ukraine one day ago, mapping that. So I haven't really read up on what Western media has said about it. But outlets like Euromaidan Press, for example, or Kyiv Independent have mentioned the crime, but didn't necessarily synthesize all these sources together, which they might have put it into a broader context of other Russian war crimes happening in this nature. Whereas I kind of focus specifically on this one to really sort of nail down the details as to who did it, how it happened, as to why, that's an unanswerable question, but.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions from the panel? Okay, yeah, it's a very comprehensive presentation, Brendan. Yeah, thanks for coming and sharing with us.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, especially as a longtime viewer and a longtime supporter of Ukraine.
Yeah, thanks, man. Okay, so I think we're going to open it up to a little bit of Q&A from chat. So chat, if you have any burning questions, feel free to post them up in there. Do we have anything? I always feel bad. I always tell myself every week, I'm going to collect all the questions from chat so that when this moment comes, when I start talking about the Q&A, I'll have a question ready. And then the moment always comes, and I'm always like, Erlend, do we have any questions in chat? So that's what I'm going to do right now. Erlend, do we got any questions from chat?
I think we did address the one that we had. I don't know if there were any. In the meantime, I'm just gonna share a video in the background. I think it's kind of interesting. It was published by Butsyov, which is a Ukrainian mill blogger, I guess you can say. I think he is with the Ukrainian Armed Forces, though. But yeah, it's from Sucha and some surrounding areas. There's been a couple of news reports from Western media, but not so much yet. The first one was from Rai Uno from Italy, and the second one was from CNN. There was also one from a Ukrainian broadcaster, but this one is actually really interesting. If you want to go and look at the whole video, it's like 15 minutes long, so I'll just let it run in the background in the meantime. Yeah. So I see there's some comments about the also other people that don't follow the mass media so much, and yeah, Mitch says that it was mentioned on CBS. So talking about Brandon's topic there.
CBC, I think that's the Canadian. It's like the BBC.
CBC. Sorry.
Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Yeah, thank you, Colby. I think Thierry had a question. Yeah, but was it maybe answered during Germinade's segment? This one.
Heard that one fire unit will be sent to because a customer has accepted to wait for the same unit to allow Ukraine to get one system more with high priority. Just for my info, do you hear any background noise right now?
Nope.
Okay, perfect. So to answer the question, according to the research by the FAZ, apparently one customer was willing to wait for one system, so the system produced for him could be delivered to Ukraine instead. This was, for example, done with Egypt at the beginning of 2022. So that wouldn't be the first time something like this happened. Apparently, one was willing, and but the Chancellery, so Chancellor Scholz, didn't approve the additional funds for the early procurement. So the fire unit, I assume, went to the customer instead because it's just an offer, and yeah. So no, according to the publicly available data, it doesn't get sent any earlier to Ukraine, or there won't be an additional one or whatever to Ukraine early because the funds were not approved. And of course, there are the funds with Norway and the German AID initiative, which I talked about in the beginning. But given the timeline that they said that they are delivering the fire unit in during fall, so I think around October or something like this, this would be the normal timeline. So I don't think that would be an additional system or fire unit, to be precise, for Ukraine.
By the way, we're talking about IRIS-T, right?
Yes, IRIS-T SLM.
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't I mention that in the beginning?
I don't know. I just thought we might, be precise about it.
Yes. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Because the question is just one fire unit. So yes, it's IRIS-T SLM we are talking about.
Yeah. Thank you. And then.
So Germinade, I think we'll just maybe while we're on the Germinade stuff, I think it was a huge story, this German, pause on Germinade stuff until Kadyrov put a machine gun on a Cybertruck. And then everyone was like, oh my God. And they just lost their minds. But up until that moment, I would say it's like the dominant story of the week. Is there anything else we can say about it? I mean, I think you were pretty concise in your report. I think it was good. I think there's just maybe a couple things I would say maybe, and you can agree or disagree, right? So number one would be that when we say there's no new aid coming from Germany, I think that's a bit of like for people who don't understand the context. As far as I understand, Germany has already earmarked like years of military aid like in the budget for Ukraine. So like that's number one would be my first question. Number two was just it sounded like you said we still don't know a lot of the details, a little bit of it. It's not very official, it sounds like, yet. It's kind of a little bit based on rumors. So just I guess we'll wait for more information. That was kind of my takeaway from it. But and then I think those are my two main questions about it. I think I had one more. Go ahead.
Okay, you can think about the third question while I'm talking. To answer the last question first, it seems to be confirmed reports because the reporting is also based on letters obtained by the newspaper written by the Ministry of Finance or the Minister of Finance to the Minister of Defense and Minister of Foreign Affairs. So these are real like letters written that they have obtained and based a news story on, so it's not just rumors, definitely not. Sadly, not just rumors. To the first question, yes, we have pledged, contracted, and military aid for the foreseeable future, at least until 2028. There was one statement of Major General Christian Freuding, who is one of the top Germans in the Ministry of Defense when it comes to Ukraine. When he was in Kyiv, I believe it was like around a year ago. Yeah, I believe it was in September 2023, where he said that they got the support of the German Bundestag for financing military assistance to Ukraine up until the year 2032. So imagine, right? And right now it seems like we are planning, just want to make that clear, we're planning to provide 4 billion euros in 2025. We have 3 billion euros in 2026, and then we have 500 million in 2027 and 2028 already planned. This is of course not the final money. There will be coming hopefully much more on top of that. Of course you don't plan with like 20 billion each year, like in many years in advance, right? You do that in very little steps, and then you add additional funds on top of it. As it is right now, according to the publications, the money for this year, so the around 7 billion euros, are completely bound now. This was already reported like 2 months ago by Bild and later confirmed by the Ministry of Defense, so this is not news. According to the publications now, the money for next year is also already fully bound and needs to be like technically drawn from the assistance provided in 2026. So yes, that's why they have already like froze additional military aid. It's not that they're freezing all aid to Ukraine. It's just additional aid. So there won't be any good night, Daniela. There won't be any additional pledges this year, at least to the current status. And yeah, I think that explains your question, or do you have a more specific?
Yeah, I think my final question is like, you know, the Germans have not come upon the solution that big brain Americans have, which is just print more money. So you guys have this concept called fiscal responsibility. And is that what is motivating this? Like, what do you like? I know it might be speculative, but do you think that is the genuine issue here? Is that there's just the Germans have looked at the budget and said we can't do anymore, or is there something else going on?
Nah. If we want, we can spend much more on Ukraine's defense. I mean, you have to look at the total budget, and with our 7 billion this year, which is the highest amount of money we would have spent for the planned future and in the past, and even that money is around, I believe it was like 1.4%, 4% of the overall budget for the year. You can't tell me that that one of the richest countries in the world, the economically strongest country in Europe, can only afford 7 billion euros a year, and for the next year says we can only afford 4 billion. And then you have to imagine, and that's what most people don't understand when they have seen a lot of very big accounts in Germany and also um, from other nations on Twitter who are now saying, hey, now after a day, we are understanding the aid isn't like completely frozen. Or Germany just tries to finance it via mechanisms backed up or finally secured by the interest of frozen Russian assets. But you have to imagine that basically means that Germany is pledging assistance to Ukraine. For example, we have pledged 135, I believe it was like 35 or 150, something in that area, Leopard 1F5s to Ukraine, right? And we are delivering now an additional like 30 until the end of the year, which brings the total number supplied to Ukraine. I believe it was like 88 then in total. Out of the pledged 100, let's say 150. Yeah. That means you have still a lot more to deliver. And this was announcements like a year ago. And a year ago. And now they are saying we are not even financing these announcements we made like a year ago from our own money. We have to imagine that every other country in the world who is assisting you to Ukraine is financing their assistance through their own budget. And what our chancellor and what the Minister of Finance are planning to do is to finance our bilateral assistance through money generated from frozen Russian assets. So it's basically like, how would you say in English, a free pass? Like a green.
Basically, they're taking money that people or major people in European politics and also the G7 said this is money we considered Ukraine to have the right to use.
Yes.
And they're basically planning on taking money they believe is Ukraine's to spend on their own defense industry. I'm pretty sure that Ukraine would prefer to invest in their own defense industry and decide exactly which systems or what kind of ammo they will buy abroad with that money, and not let Germany dictate what they should spend the money that people consider is theirs, rightfully money that is being seized from the Russians.
Yeah, and you have to understand and imagine, Germany is the only country doing this, at least publicly we know of, right? The only country. This, for example, is backed by the G7 aid, which was agreed on in, I believe it was in June, like the up to 50 billion US dollar. You have to imagine every G7 country doing this. Alone with the US, that didn't work. Like, it's 50 billion, up to 50 billion maximum. Germany plus the US alone would like exceed the 50 billion, and then coming other G7 members which are top contributors to Ukraine on top of it, like Great Britain or like France. It's not working. Like, why is Germany, or why does our government think that Germany is better or has the right to do something like this with other G7 members are not having the right to do this? This is what I really, really don't understand. It's basically, yes, we're providing assistance in theory, but practically the German government is reducing the direct funded, the own assistance to €0 in the next year up until the foreseeable future. It's like when somebody is saying they're not reducing the aid, they are reducing the aid. At least they're planning it. Of course, the money would be there through the interest, but you have to imagine, we are giving Ukraine money to say, hey, give us the money back so we can pay our aid. Like, am I the only one who freaks out about this?
It sounds very strange. Is it possible that this is just some internal politics play, and actually, when it comes to the decision that I understand is in November, none of it is actually going to materialize, and we're going to have 7 billions like last year.
So there we have an interesting question, because yes, right now we have agreed on a draft budget, which just got I believe on Friday, like got submitted to the Bundestag. And after the summer pause, the parliamentary summer pause, which mostly takes about like 2 months, so they are resuming in September, I think. And after that, they're negotiating about the budget. This is completely normal. And normally, it was also the case last year that the government only agreed on 4 billion euros, and the parliament added another 3 billion euros to it. So there, I wasn't like never really seriously concerned. It's just very annoying. In my opinion, it was typically budget negotiations. The big question is, when the parliament now puts another billions on top of it, let's say for 2024, the parliament plans with 15 billion euros. That's the amount the German ministry had planned actually for the next year. So let's say they agree and add another billions, another 11 billion to make it 15 billion euros. Then the question is, what is when the plan don't change? Like I personally actually don't know how this is going when the government is saying, okay, now you have added this billions or this billions. We're still financing this with the G7 money and other mechanisms, if there exist any. That I actually can't answer that question. And this is one of my questions I really want to have answered, because that would basically still mean, even if Germany says, hey, we're adding another 4 billion and now you have like 8 billion instead of 4, that's still not our assistance. And that's still not 8 billion from Germany, technically, as we pay it with Ukrainian money. That's a very interesting question. I have no answer. I can only say that when... Sorry, I see that you unmute yourself, Erlend. I'm done in 1 second. The only thing I can say is that when they are withdrawing from this plan and we are actually financing our bilateral assistance through our own budget, then the answer is yes. It's only a draft budget. The Bundestag still needs to negotiate about it until around November. And only then it's a final budget. And then we know what is 100% definitely to come in the next year. Hope that answers.
Yeah, I just have the feeling here that Scholz is kind of letting what is it, Lindner?
Yeah, Lindner.
Lindner hasn't been very pro-Ukraine, as far as I've understood.
He actually, like on paper, or let's put it that way, when his mouth would only matters, then he is very pro-Ukraine. He is, for example, one of the few politicians within the German government who publicly misspoken. Is it misspoken in English? Like Scholz, like when they are of a different opinion and say that he's wrong. He was one of the very few German politicians within the German government who publicly voted or said that they want Ukraine to have Taurus. When Scholz already said, just one example, but on paper it's something different. Yes,
he didn't exactly propose more aid when
no,
it was needed. Yeah, that was
no.
Yeah. So my feeling is it possible that Scholz is just kind of letting Lindner do his thing with the budget, and then in reality it's to keep him satisfied with his political intentions, and then when November comes, Scholz doesn't need to push him too much because the other parties will.
Well, I honestly don't know. I even wouldn't know if this changed anything, because we know that the Ministry of Defense, so Pistorius, we know that the Greens with the Foreign Ministry, and also the Vice Chancellor Habeck, they're all against it. Like, they're all against it. I haven't seen a single politician on Twitter, and I very, very closely monitored the situation, who is in favor of this. Everyone is, yeah, pretty much against it, or saying that it's not happening, and it gets resolved. And I'm actually not seeing why Scholz thinks that way. In my opinion, honestly, I can't tell, because like I said in the beginning, for a country like Germany, it can't be the case that they are finance, or that they can't even finance 4 billion euros. And you have to imagine and recall that Scholz and other German politicians, not only him, like called in the recent month, since I believe the change from 2023 2024, they called week after week after week on other European and NATO countries to do more for Ukraine. And now, a couple of months later, it's basically Germany's own funded budget is going to zero. Like, how does it fit?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's not going to turn out this way in November, but it's kind of weird. And I really want to say I don't understand like internal German politics. I don't understand how that works, but it sounds very strange.
Yeah. So basically, what they are explaining with it is that the Schuldenbremse, so the debt brake, is to hold, right? So the German mechanism, because everyone is pretty much against in favor of like lifting the Schuldenbremse, so Germany can actually make more debt and therefore spend much more. But Lindner and the FDP, so the Ministry of Finance, is pretty much completely against it and is completely blocking everything. So, as far as I understood it, they basically have to do what yes, because during the budget negotiations, everyone wanted to spend more on this and more on this and more on this, and everyone was willing to make an exception for the debt break because of the critical times. If I recall correctly, we did this during Corona, one case, and they would have used the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine as a second time now within a couple of years to pass on the debt break, to actually make more debt and can actually spend more money. But Lindner is blocking this, and apparently for all other things, since there's not only Ukraine, I mean, you have to imagine a country like Germany is spending so much money on different things, and yeah, it's the only thing I can think of is like because of the Schuldenbremse, maybe. But these are all speculations. Don't take my word too serious. Maybe it's because of the upcoming elections in Eastern Germany, where most of the parties are staying very, very badly, and all the pro-Russian parties are staying very, very good. Maybe they try to get additional voters from these parties, and later when the elections are done, everything gets like reworked and back to the old status. Yeah, that's the only explanations I can give. It's just, sorry when I'm ranting here, please interrupt me when I'm saying too much, but there are some very basic questions like nobody answered so far, and I want to have an opinion on this, like of course also from you, but from official sources. Like, why should we so Germany, end up with no expenditure from the annual budget, while other countries, all other countries in the world, have to pay billions upon billions of euros out of their own pockets to Ukraine? And as a second question, if Germany is not even willing to pay a few billion euros out of its own pocket, why should much smaller and economically weaker countries do so? What is withholding them from doing basically the same as Germany is doing? Or like not aiding Ukraine at all, since Germany is not doing this the same. It's it feels like nobody in the Chancellery and the Ministry of Finance has actually thought about these questions, what this actually means to Ukraine, not only from us, but also from other countries, because that would mean that would be a very, very specific case. That would be a first one for Ukraine. And that could actually be like a domino effect, if you know what I mean. I hope not, but I see this, sadly.
Yep.
So I didn't want to interrupt that beautiful rant. Someone did ask, it was beautiful. just like for a general summary of like the G7 sees money situation. So I'll just like do my best real quick to do like the quickest possible summary I can do. Please feel free, anyone, to correct me if your understanding of the situation is different. Okay. So there's about $280 billion, I think, not euros, dollars, in seized Russian money. Let's just say most of it is sitting in Europe. About 8% of it is in the US. We can sort of factor the US out of the situation. Most of the money is in Europe. So, and most of that money, like 180 billion of it, is sitting in one specific like investment bank in Europe called Euroclear. So all that said, there's all this Russian money sitting there. The G7 had a meeting in June, and in June they all agreed, the G7, of course, the big economies, they all agreed, like, we're going to give Ukraine a $50 billion loan, and we're going to pay back the loan with the interest, with the profit generated from the frozen money, right? So that money's sitting there in investments, you know, it's making money. That money can go to repay this loan. What the part that I would say still isn't clear is that the US position was to basically just like write Ukraine a check for $50 billion and then like the money will get paid back later, right? Like, in other words, the other countries will like foot the bill for now and then they'll get the money back in interest. Whereas the European position seems to be a little bit more, and again, multiple countries, different positions, blah, blah, blah. But the European position in general seems to be a little bit more like, we'll do the $50 billion loan, but it'll be over a longer period. Like, that's how the European stuff works, right? They approve like a $60 billion fund, and then over like 10 years, they have these like little like bureaucratic things, and you check things off a box and you get 10 billion here or 5 billion there. You know what I mean? Like, it's much more spread out. So, and it's still not clear which plan, or like, I don't think that the plan has been fully implemented yet, one or the other. So there's been an agreement from all the major economies that like this $50 billion loan will happen. The specifics are not worked out quite yet, but I would say like, I can't think of an example where the G7 agreed to something in relation to Ukraine and it didn't happen. So it's definitely going to happen. It's just like, we're still a little bit up in the air on like how it's going to happen. But I would say it's already had very visible effects on Ukraine's finances. Like, their ability to borrow money has increased as a result of the G7 like publicly saying that they've agreed to this deal. So anyways, that's, I think, my summary of it. If anyone else wants to add anything.
Yeah, I just want to add this very specific line about who says, to quote, about who says how the money is used. I want to say, to quote the words of our Minister of Finance, the money is at Ukraine's free disposal. Ukraine can decide, according to him, how they are spending this money. And yeah, not saying specifically about Germany, but we would force Ukraine to use that money on us. While he is saying that the money is on Ukraine's free disposal. They can decide if they want to spend it on their, like, paying their wages, or using for economically aid, for reconstruction. Of course, I think most people expect, me included, them to finance like large parts of military assistance, like, for example, stuff which nobody else wants to finance, like large, like very large contracts for the procurement of modern Western main battle tanks, additional infantry fighting vehicles, stuff like this, which nobody else wants to finance, like very large stuff which costs billions for just one single contract. They could use that money for this, because nobody else wants to finance that, because it's too large of a share within the annual budget for Ukraine aid. Right. So when Germany, let's say Germany has like a 4 billion euro budget, and then you want to make them to like have a sign a contract worth like 2 billion alone, then with just one contract for material that gets delivered like in 2-3 years minimum, 50% of the aid is gone. That's not working. So that's where I would see them using the money. But we would force Ukraine to pay money they have in their free disposal to pay our stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think kind of what happened was, right, I would say that what we would call the more aggressive plan, of course, was just to use the Russian money directly. That's $280 billion. If we just hand that money to Ukraine and say, buy weapons with it, that'd be a pretty big deal. And that was the more aggressive plan. Allegedly, right, of course, I have no special line to anything, but allegedly, the Saudis really kicked up a fuss about it and said, if the international financial system goes through with this, we're going to get a gang of, bricks together or whatever and do something crazy. So that was enough to convince the G7 countries away from this aggressive plan. And so that has resulted in this, what I would call the more moderate plan, which is to take the profits or the interest from the seized money. And I think what that's resulted in is these weird shell games where it's like, okay, well, Ukraine needs money now, so we'll give Ukraine 50 billion, and then the Russian money will give us this money, and then this and that. And like, because of those weird complications, we're seeing weird scenarios where politicians are trying to do weird stuff like this, right? In other words, if we had stuck with the more simple model where this is Ukraine's money and they can spend it how they want, then it probably would have all been a lot more simple. But because we have to go this other route where it's like, oh, that's going to be financed through a mechanism of blah, 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 like it's now going to get complicated. And because of that, you're going to have weird, weaselly things happen where it's stuff like this, where it's like, we'll loan you the money and then our defense industry will build things and then you pay us and then blah, blah, blah. And then Ukraine's like, wait, what? So I think that's probably what we're seeing here. But maybe, I'm just trying to like put it in some broader context or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I just want to point out that we talked about this, I believe, a couple of weeks or months ago, when this was like first the case. I believe in June, yes. And when Andrew was also on the stream and he agreed to my opinion. And back then I explained that in my personal opinion, of course, someone else can have a different opinion on this, but it's good that they're not using the assets itself. Because let's say, of course, nobody wants it, but let's say the conflict actually freezes. Like Russia don't lose, Russia don't win, Ukraine don't lose, Ukraine don't win. Russia doesn't pay reparations. Russia doesn't pay for reconstruction. How want you to finance the reconstruction of Ukraine, which costs several hundred billion euros? No country could finance this. The easy and very clever solution would be to, okay, you're not financing the reconstruction of Ukraine, we are using the frozen Russian assets for it. And then you can actually finance this with a large proportion of the reconstruction could be financed with this. When you use it for direct, like when you're giving Ukraine direct access to all the assets and not only to the interest of the frozen Russian assets, of course, that would help. Like in a couple of years when they can, like, go on and say, hey, we're buying this and this and this, and it costs a little bit much. Don't care. Like, I'm buying this too, and that of course would help so much the military. And like, I don't even want to speak about moral standpoint, like the morality of the troops. That would be insane. But that leaves a big question mark for the future when Ukraine doesn't win this war, and this might happen. We all have to think about it. And there, the frozen Russian assets itself are the best possibility, in my opinion.
Seizing the assets were never really on the table anyway, even before Saudi Arabia making that statement. The EU was not going to go for just liquidating the assets and giving all the money to Ukraine. They were never willing to do that. I'll add as well that last month, Secretary of the Treasury Yellen said that they hope to have a final agreement in place by October. So we'll see how that continues to play out over the next couple months, whether they're able to make that deal and then what it actually looks like, because there are still uncertainties there. But I will say that we already know that some countries, well, every country will have the ability, every country that's providing some portion of this loan, because it's not all coming from one place. It's $50 billion collectively spread across the G7. Japan has already said that they are not going to allow any of that money that they are loaning to be used for any sort of defense articles, or at least lethal defense articles, because their constitution precludes it. And every other country has the ability to dictate the terms under which that money will be utilized. So this remains an open question that has to be resolved, because it's still a little bit early to say definitively what those conditions might be, whether military procurements are permitted or whether they are not permitted, as is the case with Japan.
Okay, I think we can move to the next topic. So T is also asking Colby again, is JASM compatible with the F-16 Ukraine will receive, or have received, I guess?
Yes, at least with some of them. There's some anecdotes that suggest that perhaps not all of the F-16s in the donor pool have actually been upgraded to the 6.5 tape, which would enable JASM baseline integration. But at least some of them will. Some of them certainly do have the integration already, and if any of them don't still have that requisite software upgrade, then theoretically it should not be particularly complicated to do that work, based on John and I's understanding of what's involved in doing a software update. So I don't anticipate there being any challenge there. It's just a question of when a decision might be made on providing JASM. So that's still very uncertain how long the decision-making process might last with that.
And like real quick summary, like JASM, real good bomb. US just signed a contract that said we're going to make unlimited, right? I mean, it's just like we should definitely get Ukraine JASM. I think it's the TLDR of that. Is that right, Colby?
It's an air-launched cruise missile. It's a counterpart to Storm Shadow and Taurus. The baseline variant does not have as long range as either of them do, but broadly, it's in the same ballpark of capabilities. It's got better low observability features. So it's something that we've been fighting for a long time for Ukraine to receive, because they're going to run out of Storm Shadows and Scalp EGs very, very soon. So they need an alternative source of missiles, and the United States has a fairly large stockpile of baseline JASMs, with a number of them expired or past their best before date. So those should be made available to Ukraine.
Plenty of cans of JASM sitting in the pantry that we should hand over to Ukraine, that are going off. We got another question, I think, for Colby. Any news about the GLSDBs, which is ground-launched small diameter bombs? Are they now working?
I've seen no news on GLSDB since we had the initial reports about it not working very well. So as far as I'm aware, Boeing is still working on, certainly there are software issues. There are likely some unspecified hardware issues as well. So those are still being worked out as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
Thanks, Colby. Any more Colby-related matters, anyone?
I think that was it. The next question.
Any articles, Colby, before we move on?
Yeah, I'll have my thoughts on the Kursk offensive coming out probably this coming week.
Okay, nice. We'll try to get you on to talk about it. Go ahead, Erlend.
Yeah, we have a space test account is asking, is Hungary still blocking EU money to Ukraine?
As far as I know, yes, right? Like that was in so this was like a month and a half ago. Throughout the entire war, Russia has been transporting gas supplies through Ukraine to Hungary and Slovakia specifically. And very recently, Ukraine basically just said, we're not going to do that anymore. I would assume up until now, they collected like royalties on it and stuff. Like, it wasn't a complete, they weren't just doing this to be nice. And so they shut it off. And Hungary, as maybe not as a direct result of this, but like shortly after that, Hungary basically said, EU, you need to go to Ukraine and get this fixed for us. Otherwise, we're going to like block all aid. Like, and they've been doing that up until now. I haven't heard any new information about it since that happened like a month and a half ago. And I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but like Kadyrov put a machine gun on a Cybertruck, and that's like way more important. So yeah, I don't know, but I haven't heard anything about it.
The funny thing is that Ukraine captured the metering station, which this particular pipeline goes through on the Russian side of the border, and then a couple of days later, the Russians shelled the whole metering station, and I think parts of the like crucial infrastructure. So as of now, the pipeline can't be turned back on again because Russia shelled it. So
yeah, so I think I have, this is totally me speculating, but Hungary had no contingency plan in place for if this ever happened, which is, I mean, that's insane if you think about it. Like, imagine your country depends on energy resources from a country that is at war with another country. Like, it depends on them just having some weird handshake that like they're going to send it through anyway. And they had 2 years to fix that problem, and they just didn't. And now their economy might collapse. And so I think the EU is just waiting for them to blink economically, and then they'll go, please send us food and we'll, you know, unblock the aid or something to that effect, right? So I'm guessing that that's kind of, we're basically at a standoff there where the EU is waiting for Hungary to blink economically, and Hungary is waiting for the EU to blink on the aid issue for Ukraine. And I don't think the EU is going to blink because they have this bilateral, they have a lot of other options, whereas Hungary really doesn't. That's kind of my hot take anyway. That's most of what I just said, speculation. Go ahead, Erlend.
I think you're quite correct there, that the EU isn't stressing about it. It's like, it's better if it goes through the EU, but as we've seen before, it can easily, like, Hungary can be basically kept on the sideline and sent to drink coffee, you know. Yeah, Austria is also livid. I know Jacob here in the comments is saying that Austria is dependent on the gas, and I think Austria has some other contingency and also do buy something through Italy, if I'm not correct. If I'm not completely wrong. But yeah, Austria has also been incredibly naive here. I don't understand how you can, you know, rely on energy infrastructure going through a country which is at war from the country that attacked the country that is basically sending you the gas. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like I understood the first year, I understood that Europe had a very serious like energy crisis going on, and like, you know, we can throw blame around for like why they became dependent on Russia and all that, but like at the end of the day, they had a very short amount of time to like redirect their energies. But it's been a fair amount of time, you know. I think that it's obvious that like contingencies needed to be put in place. So I have almost no sympathy for these countries that haven't figured out any alternatives. But you know, I hope that the energy situation does resolve itself, because you know, like that is probably one reason why Ukraine has permitted this. Obviously, they get certain revenues from allowing the transport, like they get duties on transporting the gas. But also, like, you know, they don't want to destabilize Europe or like, you know, upset a lot of these countries that have given them aid in the past. So, you know, I hope that they resolve their energy situation just, you know, for their own reasons. But anyway, someone asked, has it been documented? That's why I started talking. Who gave Kadyrov the Cybertruck? According to Kadyrov in the video, Elon Musk personally gave it to him, but I don't know if that's true. I would say the two running theories on the internet are that he smuggled it through the UAE or that Elon Musk personally gave it to him. I don't know which.
It doesn't really matter. Kadyrov is internationally sanctioned also by the US. So if Tesla sold it to him, even if it's through a third, trying to bypass sanctions, Tesla have to do everything in its powers to either retrieve it or, deactivate it, and they can. So this is really interesting. I like the whole memes is fun, but Kadyrov is actually personally sanctioned, so you cannot do any, you can't do any economical transactions with him. So that Tesla should be deactivated, unless Tesla wants to get problems with the treasury, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's pretty unlikely that Tesla sold it directly to Kadyrov. I think the intermediary theory, I mean, with Cybertruck, I'm pretty sure all of them, are just have been sold via pre-order. Like you just signed up on the list and then, whoever pre-ordered them. So somebody in the Middle East or something probably pre-ordered it and then that person resold it to Kadyrov, or maybe even pass through more intermediaries. So it's hard for companies when that's happening to prevent that from happening, because it's just a truck. It goes wherever it goes to, and then from there, how do you stop things? So, but I think the notion that Musk personally sent it to him for that reason is pretty suspect, because that would open him and Tesla up to a lot of trouble with the U.S. Treasury Department for violating U.S. sanctions. So,
yeah, it's absolutely right. The whole thing is like bewildering that he was like that he said that, and that he just blatantly was like, here's my Tesla, everybody. I hadn't considered, though, Erlend's right, that like basically that will trigger a situation where if Kadyrov publishes a public video where he's like, hey, I own a Tesla, the US government is going to go to Tesla and say, hey, he's a sanctioned entity. You need to do everything in your power. And in Tesla's power is on a computer terminal, they can press a button and just deactivate his Tesla. Like, so that's what they're probably going to do. And so his Tesla's going to get deactivated. Probably like already has been, but I don't know.
It should have. If not, then you have basically people that is actively working against US sanctions, because they can definitely just deactivate that Tesla remotely with a click. So
either Kadyrov's nephew is like real good at jailbreaking Teslas, or legally that's what has happened, we have to assume.
Yeah, of course.
Just to give you a hint, just to simply recharge the car, the truck, he can't unless he's completely registered with Tesla. So I mean,
no, that's not right. You can charge it with any plug, but not at the Tesla superchargers, which I don't think they have in Chechnya.
Okay, you think that?
But it's just the Tesla chargers.
How you update software and other things? They should be geofenced and geolocated for your area.
Of course. I mean,
there are not much trucks in Chechnya. I mean, it should be easy to deactivate the software and then the car.
I'm sure Kadyrov's Cybertruck broke and he was like really mad, and there's some Chechen subordinate somewhere like panicking and like searching online on like Chinese pirate forums for like jailbroken Cybertruck software. I'm reminded of the John Deere tractors. The Chechens looted a bunch of John Deere tractors and took them back to their beloved homeland, and they were all deactivated by John Deere like immediately because they watched on GPS them go back to Chechnya and just turn them off, and they were like bricked. And like I remember seeing photos of them just like collecting, like just sitting out in the Chechen countryside, like paperweights.
The thing is that he stated that this truck will go to Ukraine and fight there as well. So, I mean, you have a bunch of different things which are... It's reasonable that Tesla should be ordered to deactivate this thing. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It's just a meme, in my opinion, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was just a funny video that he made. He makes funny videos. He's a weirdo. But he is a horrible dictator that has tortured many people. So as memey as he is, it does look like he was getting really sick. It looks like in that video he looks a lot more healthy, I would say. I don't know if you would agree, Erlend.
Oh yeah, definitely. And he was full back with the Dons.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's true. Well, he says Don all the time in Russian, if you guys don't know. It's like a kind of a Chechen thing, just like a verbal thing. It's kind of in Chechen. But he looks more healthy. Like he got like treated by like a Swiss doctor or something. He does look a lot better in the video. I think that's one thing we can take away from it. Anyway, any other questions, Erlend? We should probably wrap it up. We're going pretty over time today.
I think we answered most of them. Yeah.
I think so.
Oh, no, there's one. Is the DPR still a thing? Or I guess is meaning DNR still a thing, or is it just considered Russia now? Well, that's first of all, DNR was never really a thing, and definitely not considered Russia.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume that this person is like not, because I mean, it's a very loaded question, obviously, right? Like, so yeah, DPR is the English one, right? DNR is the like Russian, the Latinization of the Russian acronym. DPR is the English translation. I'm gonna assume that they're gonna mean in this question like in Russia's conception, right? Like, when they basically, I think what the question is, I'm assuming. When Russia annexed these territories, like, do they still conceive of the DPR and the DNR or the LPR as things or not? Are they still legal entities like in the Russian state? I think they are, but I don't know if anyone else has a better answer.
I think they said that the whole of the oblasts are a part of Russia, but
yeah.
As far as I understand, people that are in these occupied territories are definitely treated differently than people from the international recognized Russia. They don't get the same rights. They don't get the same health assistance, and it's a mafia ruled, semi kind of military ruled occupied territory thing. It's not, I wouldn't say that you can compare it to how life is in internationally recognized oblasts of Russia.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember the time it came up, the one time I remember it came up that was a big issue was during the time when Sean Pinner, I think is his name, and Cossack Gundi, I forget his actual name, but that's his username on Twitter. Both excellent follows, by the way, if you guys follow those guys on social media. They were captured. They're Ukrainian Marines. Like, they signed up for the service. They're not mercenaries. They were formal members of the Ukrainian military. They were captured by Russia, and Russia was putting on this big charade that, like, well, it's the DNR, and like capital punishment's legal there, so they're going to kill them. And in Russia, capital punishment's illegal, right? So there was this weird legal, it was like a weird Russian thing where they were playing these legal games. So yeah, I think it's a good question. As far as I understand, the DPR or the DNR is like legally still a thing. Like there's still the authorities there are that, but I could be mistaken about that.
It's one of those things where Russia says one thing and they're doing completely a different thing.
Yeah. And you're totally right about them being like second-class citizens. Like, I remember at one point they tried to evacuate during like a Ukrainian offensive, and at the border they were just told, like, get out of here. Like, you're not Russians. Like, go away. So yeah, they're not true. And also, Russia is just scouring the entire region for manpower. Like, they just go, I assume under the auspices of the one of the reasons we're kind of tiptoeing, or at least I am tiptoeing around this terminology, is, it's all Russia, right? These are just Russian proxies. They're a little bit spicy proxies. Like, Russia has killed numerous leaders of these places before who have gotten out of hand, because, as Erlend said, it's like a warlord state. It's like a very bad place, basically. But yeah, like, they're just scouring that place for any males they can find to put on the front lines and put in these wave assaults. So yeah, it's a real real bad situation. It's one of probably the most egregious things Russia has done. It's like a complete violation of international law and like a mass of human rights violations and crimes against humanity on like multiple levels.
Yeah, they've been convicted for human rights violations in Crimea.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it for this week. So thank you, chat. It was a very lively chat when we started the Q&A, so we appreciate it. We always appreciate your questions. Feel free to send us any questions you have. You can get us on Twitter. You can throw up a YouTube comment in the video. We always appreciate the people who watch live. We thank you for your live questions, but also we're happy to take questions from the VOD people, the video on demand. I don't know what we call, the people who watch it after it's recorded. So yeah, feel free in the comments to post your questions. We'll do our best to at some point collect them all and answer them. We're doing our best to take on your feedback and stuff. So yeah, feel free to speak up if you guys are interested in topics or want to I don't know, help out or something. So yeah, thanks to our audience. Thanks for tuning in. We always broadcast every week, every Sunday at 2100 Kyiv time. I want to thank our wonderful panel. We had a really great panel today. We had, of course, myself. I'm not that great, but we had Germany to Ukraine. We had Lovely Lad, which is great. As Erlend said, he's doing really good work, worth paying attention to. His work, high praise from Andrew as well, so check him out. We had Brendan also join us, which was a great report, excellent presentation, so thanks so much. And also Germinaid had a big task in front of him today, and I think he handled it admirably. So good job everyone, good job of course to Erlend as always. Thanks everyone, and Colby. I always need to avoid naming people because then I should just name everyone. And Daniela, thank you for joining us as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and conclude there. Thanks everyone again for tuning in, and thanks to our panel. And Slava Ukraini.
Heroям слава.
Heroям slava.
Heroям slava.